Meeting to order, the public meeting to order at 5:05. Thank you for your patience as we wrapped up the technical pieces. So first order on the agenda is to review the agenda. See if the board members see anything that's missing, any revisions, edits that should be made. Come on.
I didn't see when I looked at it earlier.
I understand. Okay, great. And then I don't see any public joining us as of right now. No comment. Thank you, Danielle. Okay, so I guess we'll move on to the next piece, the mission review. And Jamie, if you would be so kind.
Oh, my
I
pleasure.
love a different voice.
So our mission, the Police Advisory Board mission, is to offer advice to the St. Albans Police Department for the successful implementation of 21st century policing strategies and to assist the police department in following the established roadmap as amended by the City Council.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
All right. Then the next agenda item is to consider approval of the January meeting minutes, and those were sent out in the packet.
So moved.
Got a motion. Anybody want a second?
This is Danielle, second.
Thank you, Danielle. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed, same sign. Minutes are accepted. Okay, the next update was the data posted on the St. Albans Police Department website. So at our last meeting, it was brought up that the data had been missing for a couple of months and that there was a curiosity if the intention was to post it annually or less frequently. And that is not the case. There was just a little bit of a delay, and I don't know, Chief Lamont, if you want to touch on that, but with the barracks moving and the holidays and the staff member that was out for a bit, there was just a delay.
Yep, I can. Yep, the last post was September of 21. October was our move. November, that person was out for the entire month, and then December, we just didn't do it. And we knew we didn't do it in December, and we said we'll kick it back off in January, and it'll be back on there every month again now. We weren't looking to not do it anymore. We were going to revamp it. We have been posting it. I don't know if anybody looked at it prior, but we had posted like literally every call that came in, and at least most of the months. I didn't really like that because it's just to me it's a lot of data that it's just too much. It's just some months we get, we do 10,000 calls a year. You're looking at 500 calls a month or more. So we've gone to, I don't think we looked at how we're doing this in January, but we're doing it the way we had done in the past at times, which is just the top 10 calls for the month. So the most prevalent calls we had of the month, and then the motor vehicle stops, what they resulted in being warning ticket or arrest. And then we broke down the calls a little more, show how many were in each of the first categories. So how many driving license suspended, how many larcenies, how many unlawful trespass. So everybody has a basic idea of the most prevalent calls for that month. It just made more sense. It's easier to look at. You're not scrolling through call after call after call. That doesn't really mean a lot to people, I don't think, because there's overwhelmingly number of calls.
Right.
So I think this makes more sense. If you guys have another suggestion, we can look at it, but this was, the top 10 calls will probably be pretty consistent throughout the year, but if a month, if something spikes in a month, then maybe that's something we look at. So it gives us trends, I guess you'd say.
Awesome.
But it should be there every month now, unless something drastic happens or that officer. But we can always kick it to somebody else, but he can do this in 5 minutes where others takes a lot longer because he's very proficient at it.
Great. The other thing that had been brought up too, and I think you touched on it a little bit last month too, we went over a lot of data last month. And then I know you also went over it again at City Council. So one of the questions that had come up, and I know that you've told us, but just to make sure it is clear out there for the race data, that is, and correct me if I'm wrong, that's based off of officers' perception. So it's not something that is asked, right? You can't be asked. It's not best practice. It's not advised. So it's just based off the officer's perception, and it's not collected. Like it's not supposed. Is it? I guess clarify that. So what I'm saying. So I'm asking.
The state of Vermont is the one that dictates when and how it's collected. So the state of Vermont requires that's collected on traffic stops, and it's collected whether it's a written warning or a written ticket. It's collected at that stop. So if I stopped John Doe and a motor vehicle stop today, I have to document that car stop with a written warning, verbal warning, or written ticket. And even if it's a verbal warning, it's collected after we gave them the verbal warning. In that stop, you're collecting race data. That race data is the officers, and in my example, I'm using myself, in my perception of what that person's race was. So no, I cannot ask them. That race data is then collected on the back of a form, whether it's a ticket warning or a verbal warning, which is just another warning. This is a warning they wrote after the fact. That data is supplied to the state of Vermont. That data is used against traffic crashes that are also the only other place that the state of Vermont requires you to collect race data. Again, that is a perception. But that data is, they believe, is a more truer account of who's actually driving in the state of Vermont, because that takes into account everybody that drives through Vermont, whether you're out of state, in the state, doesn't matter. If you're involved in a crash, you could be from wherever you are. That's a true account of who is driving in the state of Vermont. You have no way of coming in contact with, you are called to that crash. So it's, you take out the entire officer's ability to decide if they're making that contact. You were called to it. So a crash is just, by luck, this officer was called to that case. They have gone there, they've now collected the race, and then the tickets are compared throughout the state. So every department in the whole state of Vermont has to collect that race data. And then the state will compile that, and they'll release it at some point this spring. And every department will show where your race data.
Okay.
But again, the only downfall of it is it's perception based. So everybody's perception, it's not accurate, because people don't often look like you would expect them to potentially look based on where you're from and what you think people may look like or sound like or dress like. It's not always accurate.
Gotcha. Okay.
That's
So
on every stop?
Every stop. Yeah. So the nice thing about that is your perception is your perception. So if you're writing a person based on what you think they are, that's why you're writing that ticket. So your numbers should be accurate to what your perception was. You may not be right about what that person's race is, but you're still writing a ticket or a warning based on what you thought they were.
Right.
So it should give you an accurate, when you're checking somebody for this script, if you find a bias in an officer, because that's what we're talking about, you should be very accurate because you're using their perception of what they thought. So that perception should follow them.
Got it.
And that's what it was. So it's more specific to traffic or to accidents.
Traffic and accidents. When we did the extra data collection we did for arrests, like we did for city council, that was something we did internally. That's not required. That takes a ton of work because we have to go through each individual arrest individually. Because part of your arrest custody sheet, when you arrest somebody, you do a custody sheet, find out where they live, how you can contact them, and a bunch of other demographic data. There is a sheet, there is a section on there on race. That is collected as well, but that is not required by the state of Vermont. So I suspect the reason is maybe other agencies don't use it the same. I suspect agencies don't use the same arrest data collection. We happen to use one that does that. Other agencies I know use the same exact one, but you're not required to collect that.
Right.
We went through, one of our officers, our supervisors went through to see how we did an arrest last year as far as for that data point, and that's what we discussed last week.
So that was a proactive decision that was made.
We just wanted to
It's not
see.
necessarily done across the state. Awesome.
And I'm not gonna say it's not done in a lot of agencies, if it is, it's not advertised, it's not put out there, that I know of anyway.
Right. And it sounds like it's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work. They go, depending on how many arrests you do, but there's nothing in our computer system that spits that out quite like tickets do.
Gotcha.
So you kinda gotta go through arrests and find it.
Gotcha.
Is there a way to, because I imagine looking through a year's worth of data would be a lot of work no matter what you were doing, so is that something that could be just a normal part of the data as it's collected, so we're capturing it in real time?
So that's the, so Valcor, the Valcor system, which is, we've been on for years in the St. Albans Police Department, and many other agencies have been. Vermont State Police just switched to that, as did everybody else. They switched it a few times in the last year trying to get it up and running effectively. Everybody's now on it, they've been on for about a month. So once they get all the bugs out of the system, I think the goal is to have a lot more effective and user-friendly data, so you may see a lot more data coming in and going out. Right now, there's a lot of things that it's not able to do because it just crashes the system. So I think you're gonna see a lot, that's the whole idea, is get everybody in the same system, so a lot more, again, it's more user-friendly across the state, and they can do a lot more digging and finding and locating data from individual offices or as a collective state. So where it's gonna go, I don't know, but right now, it's limited, because every time they try to add more stuff, it crashes everybody. It's just, they're building, they went from, like I said, a handful of agencies to every single agency in the state of Vermont. So this coming, So I think to answer your question, yeah, eventually we're gonna be able to do a lot.
Okay.
Right now, it's just, they call them, they don't call them help tickets, but something like that, and it's just constant tickets going in about fix this, and they're coming from all over the state, so.
Yeah.
It's gonna get better. It's already gotten better, because we're all on the same system at least. But you'll see that data coming out better, and I think that's part of the goal for this, is to be able to do that stuff. But I can't give you a timeline on any of it. I can just tell you that internally, we can do that stuff, it just takes some work, that's all.
And going back to that data set, the stuff that's out there monthly, is the grievance data part of that or no?
No,
No.
so I keep a tally going every time you're talking about the internal investigations.
Or I guess maybe both in internal investigations, but also as a community member if I complain.
Yeah, that's internal investigation.
Okay,
So,
got it. Okay,
same,
sorry.
different language, same
Just
thing.
wanted to make sure, yeah.
So internal investigations is based on a complaint, whether it's
Okay.
internal or external, same thing. So
Gotcha.
it's just different
Okay.
language. But yes, I keep that tally going. Every single one that comes in gets assigned a case number, an internal case number, but that is a running tally. So I could tell you right now, if I have a computer in front of me, what we are after the year. If you wanted that monthly, I'd give you monthly, but we're not actually reporting it out till the end of the year. But
Okay.
I have that in a second's notice. I mean, as soon as it comes in, it's updated. So that I have to provide it, I have it. Plus, it's a way for us to keep track
Yeah.
and make sure I'm not gonna do it at the end of the year and try to go as well. In this example of last year, 21, and write them all in December, so I keep them up to date as they come.
I think it may be worth us starting to look at that data as we get into kind of our second year. And I know we've got the data in the year total from before we started, and I don't know if we'll see any differences. And we might see more if we're wanting to build that trust of people to feel comfortable coming and making grievances if they didn't feel that way before. I'm not saying they did. But that just may be good data for us to look at and then see if there are any trends or patterns that.
I mean, the only thing I probably wouldn't do is I probably wouldn't do the work of a pie chart or anything till the end of the year, just, but I can do actual, just numbers.
Yeah.
This time we have, like, I can tell you, like, what are we in February right now? Top of my head, I think we're at number 2 right now for this year.
Okay.
At the end of February, but I mean, I can bring that for you for sure. I think we just assigned number 2 in the last couple of weeks.
So maybe given that it's just quarterly.
Yeah, but like last year, we started off like 5 in the first 2 weeks of
Yeah.
January. You just don't know. They come in, that's just the way it is.
That's just close,
So,
yeah.
and I just don't know,
But quarterly probably gives enough, if you are looking at 2 in 2 months or 20,
Yeah.
it's quarterly is a good roll up, but that I think would be worth.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, we can do that with anything, so, if you wanted to use the forces in that, I would need a little bit of heads up on that, because that is something we keep it rolling as well. But that takes a little more, that is done by another lieutenant, not me.
Okay.
The lieutenant that does the investigation, but I keep the tally on the IAs. The use of force is completely done by another lieutenant, does all the backstory on that, so I would just need a little more heads up on that for him to spit that out. And we have actually switched systems on that. The city invested a pretty good chunk of money on what's called the benchmark system. It's going to do our internal affair investigations and our use of forces. They're all going to be in one massive system that is going to keep track. It's just a better system for us to share amongst the commanders, the reports we do, to keep everything in one central location rather than sitting on everybody else's individual computers. So we are just doing our first ones with it this week and month, so it's going to be a learning curve on that as well. But the thought is they can print out reports for us much easier for recaps and everything, so we'll see how it goes.
Okay.
But a lot of things are changing with our documentation system as well, so that are streamlining everything.
Well, if we said, because we're February's meeting.
Yeah.
And I do know what month it is.
2022.
Good grief. But if you came in April,
Yes.
that would
Yeah.
be able to give you time to roll up.
Yep.
And I would think the use of forces would be something that we would want to see in that data.
I think so too, yeah.
Sure.
I think it'd be interesting too to be able to compare it to the previous year. And I know it's not gonna be a ton because we have 1 year's worth of data, with a lot of the changes that have been made, but then moving forward, being able to look back and kind of see what are the trends, and I know it's hard, you can't always predict, is it a certain month, is it a certain time?
So those are 2 things that I dare say are going to be very hard to predict anything on.
Yeah.
But no, I get numbers for you though, and take a look at it, but I think timeline wise it's very difficult to say this month is always going to be worse than that.
Right, there's just no way of knowing.
And I don't know if this will be anything like what we're expecting to see in the healthcare industry, but as COVID lifts and people start to return
We
to
do suspect
normal,
that's
we're
what-
expecting to see spikes in a
Sure.
lot of So I, yeah,
I would agree, I would agree with that on probably both of those things, because the more contacts you have, both of those things are likely to go up. Just, and this is the business for that, so unfortunately, but, yeah, we can do that, April, we can plan on April and then July, whatever it is, yeah.
yeah. But I think that, you know, the caveat around that is even if we see more data, we talked pretty transparently about you instituted a stricter
Very much.
policy where all of it's gonna be reported, so, if you align that with the fact that activity is also gonna go up, you're naturally gonna see a spike, but I think that's a good
Makes
thing.
sense.
Yeah,
No, that's not a problem, we can look at that, how we roll it out, and then we can tweak it as we go through our first couple.
Yeah.
That's no problem.
Which it was interesting too, learning all the data from last month and then hearing it at city council too, like the idea, I would have thought that the calls would have gone up when
Yeah,
COVID hit,
we
it was
all-
just the opposite.
It was just the opposite, I don't know what, everybody took care of themselves in their
I
house.
know,
I don't know what they did, you might have a
when
different
COVID first
perspective.
hit, our calls went way down.
Yeah, we,
Yeah, and
across
then
the
so
state.
And then things started lifting a little bit. You
Yeah,
know,
we all
slowly,
panicked
but
that it was gonna skyrocket.
Initially, it was pretty quiet, it was a little eerie.
Yeah, a little eerie, that's right.
Yeah.
well, then there's that concerning piece too, because like in substance use, like now we've seen, I mean, the
Right,
numbers
now we're
of
seeing the result
overdoses
of
and
that,
fatalities
yeah.
are out of control, so
And
it's
we're
like.
seeing increased violence now.
Right, exactly, so it's almost like we thought, well, things are actually, COVID's kind of chilling everybody out, but
No,
the reality
it
is
was
not, it
happening,
just wasn't
it's
coming
just
to the
they weren't
surface,
reporting
so.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
all about that.
Okay, well, thank you for that. Did anybody, Winnie, Danielle, did you have any questions before we move on to the next agenda item?
I don't have any questions, but thank you.
Great, thank you both. Okay. So the next item, I had put the opiate addiction summit, just to give an overview, because I don't know, this came so fast and happened so quickly, but last week, Chief Lamont and I participated in an opiate addiction summit in Montpelier. So the organizer was Brad Ferlin, who just did an outstanding job, approached me last year with this idea, and it just ended up blowing up into a big, amazing event that'll be the first of probably, I thought 4, but I've heard him mention 5. So we don't know how many it's gonna be, but it was definitely well attended, had some amazing speakers there, and Chief Lamont shared about specifically the embedded crisis worker program, and there's a lot of interest in that. We've been called by a number of different organizations wanting to learn more about it too, so I feel like more than anything I wanted to put that just to highlight. I feel like it solidifies and kind of confirms what we asked in December, what the community and the partners are seeing as such a valuable position, so hopefully we'll find a way as a community to advocate for more of those positions.
Yeah, the stories were very powerful.
Were you able to
I was
attend
on
that?
Zoom, yeah.
Yes, okay, great.
For most
great.
of it, I had to jump off early, but.
Yeah, it was pretty wild. We had the recovery center director from Rutland was there also, and they have recovery coaches embedded in law
Yeah,
enforcement, and have been doing that
people.
for years. In a future summit, we'll have Mike Johnson from the Springfield Turning Point. He's the director there, and he was also one of the first centers to have embedded recovery coaches with law enforcement. So just cool to hear those stories and see how effective the programs are and the partnerships.
One thing, as an aside, we have the opportunity, there's money in this grant that we're part of, to send people to recovery coaching training. So we're gonna have at least one person at Voices that will be trained.
Oh, I love that. I love that.
And I think it's gonna happen in March.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if you need the schedule, let me know, because I have that.
So if more money comes available, we might have the ability to send some more, but right now it's one per network program, so 15 programs are able to send at least one person.
Yeah, we're getting, there's a lot of coaches getting trained up now too with the recovery coach and the emergency department too, so yeah, just a lot of really cool stuff going
So
on.
it's a great opportunity
Yeah.
for us.
So, yeah, I just wanted to touch on that and to thank the chief for participating too. I didn't know if it was gonna end up being, I thought that we might be able to do Zoom instead of in person, but it was in person. It was really powerful, and just thank you for attending that. There was a lot of good feedback,
There were a lot of people attending because you couldn't tell.
Yeah,
The camera was just on speakers.
I'm still awaiting the recording and the chat and then the count on the Zoom, but my understanding is that there was a pretty large volume of attendees through Zoom, plus the presenters were all in person. So, and we had the health department share some data in the front end on overdose statistics and whatnot. So it was very powerful. So I'll keep this team updated when the next one comes, because it's, like I said, it got a lot bigger than I anticipated in a really quick time. So. The next thing on the agenda was policy and procedures, and I'm going to turn that over to you, Jamie. There were a couple things. And I don't know if you want me to start with that because it was brought up last month.
Yeah, the social media policy that we need.
Yeah, so at least to respond to it, because so that was brought up last month by a member of the my English. Hold on, let me try to get English back. A member of the public asked about the social media policy. It was on the agenda a few months ago, and then it kind of got tabled. So it is in a holding pattern right now. We're waiting for a response on it, and we're not going to move forward until we get that response from the city. So that's kind of where that one is as of right now. And then I don't know if there's any other.
We don't have any other right now. You've got a bunch of them.
Yep, so-
And approved.
So so again, thank you for all the help you've done. I don't know what we're at now, we're over 20, but.
Yeah, easily.
So we're at the point where I think in March and April, we have some 1 years that are gonna come back around. Those will be real quick again, whether you look at, I'll send them to you, you can do it wrong, but I think it's just gonna be dates and address change. Our sergeant that's been out for several months now with the long-term illness is back on light duty, so he's gonna start diving back into old policies. So we're gonna start to see some new to you policies coming again. So I suspect he'll get cranked enough with the policies again.
Okay.
But I don't know, it's gonna take him a few weeks he's only working a few hours a week. So when he gets cranking, I think you're gonna see some come again. But I don't expect to be a whole lot more, to be honest with you. Then we'll be over we're done at the important ones anyway. We can start knocking off some really old ones that are just old. You'll start to see some 1 year ones going to 3 years soon, and then you'll start to see some more flow in. But the social media one, it's just that is the issue we're running into with that one is for those who don't know is that is the first policy I think we've hit that is not strictly procedural. It is dealing with people in work and their out of work life, and from what we're learning across the country is it's not as easy as that. So that's being looked at by our attorneys, or not the city attorney, because it's gathered a lot of attention, like I said, across the country with the unions. So that's where it's at. It's it's definitely out of my hands at this point, and when I get an update, you'll get an update. But it's been out of my hands for a while now.
Yeah, so I think, my thought around that is that in my understanding is that it's probably going to be a city, like you said, a city.
My belief, yes.
Yeah, so if that's something that we're passionate about as a committee when we go next to the city council, I think it would be important for us to speak that to them in the sense that, we've done all that we can do here, but our recommendation is based on, what we're seeing in other places, what the community is telling us, what we understand that we just gotta make a decision. Do something with it, right? Whatever that decision is. But I do appreciate that someone raised it here, and I think in my work experience, it's important enough to keep
on the
the
agenda.
foot on the gas on it a little bit, right? So that was my thought. One thing from one of the policies that went through city council, someone then, I can't remember if they quote how I came about it, but there was a question on the hiring policy related to, we have language in other policies, and I believe this is true around gender identity, gender bias, and that hiring policy doesn't have that same language in it in terms of how, I believe it was related to making sure that we're not, we're hiring regardless of somebody's. So I thought it might be worth just taking a quick peek, and I had it teed up and then I made it go away, the exact language, so I don't want to misrepresent the community member who brought it forward, but it just may be worth us taking a quick peek at it and bringing it back, because I think there was even a good catch at city council on some of that.
They did,
so,
that was not one of the ones I called.
Yeah, so I think, and I don't think this one came up at city council,
No,
this one was independent, but I think that it's just important to continue to evidence that policies are living and breathing, and that our committee's got a good eyeball on them, and that Chief is doing some, really great work in keeping them flowing. And then the other piece to that is that anytime that the state releases one, I know that changes things a little, but I still think it's good for that to be known here at this committee, because we know people people catch on to those changes, and it's good for us to have that public.
Yeah, so you're seeing 3 state policies so far, like the
Yeah.
taser, the use of force, and the body worn camera. Now, the body worn camera's already gone, it's getting so much negative feedback that they're already in edits. So we're currently under that state one.
Yeah.
The information we got last week at the chief's meeting was that that's gonna be redone here because it's a good policy, but there's some things that other departments are not liking, so that'll change soon. I'm
Okay.
sure. So, but I'll get back to you when it does. But
Perfect.
as of right now, we're working under that policy.
Yeah. Well, that will be good for community members when they're watching this or tuning in to understand that the state does have some control when they release these policies, and so to effect change, they'll need to go to their legislature, to a higher level, up to, is that still Mike Sherling? Is he still the top cop? Yeah.
He is.
Yeah, I took a peek too to see if I could find the hiring policy in my office.
Yeah,
And I'll take a look at it tomorrow or on Thursday and
and I'll find the exact language that the person submitted to me and
Yeah,
send
I'm
it
trying
to
to
you.
find it on here.
If you're watching, I'm sorry. I had it ready tonight.
It's gotta be, I'm guessing it's the same basic language we've used in a couple of policies, and how it's not in there, I don't know, but it's
Yeah.
oversight and everything. but,
Yeah, it was,
When you do that much policy work, it's easy
It's a little
to.
dry.
Yeah.
But no, not a problem.
Okay. Any questions or comments from Winnie and Danielle?
No, I'm sorry, I don't have any comments. I'm not feeling great, so I just have to participate.
Sorry, Danielle, I hope you feel
That's
better.
good.
I have no comments.
Thank you, Winnie. Okay, I'm gonna move on to the next
Yeah.
agenda item. So the next piece was the Police Advisory Board surveys collected.
And so I think I reported last time that we have them, and we got a good turnout. We now have over 100, because we've had some stragglers. So it was great for inclusivity to make sure that we did them on paper. But the not great part of that is then you have to translate that paper into something that we can all look at. So, and you want to make sure that there's integrity around that data. So Melinda and I have talked a little bit about this offline, but a couple different thoughts is that one person, and I'm really almost at a place where that can easily be me, can enter it on the first pass, and then someone else double checks it, or we clearly divide and conquer and each create a shared location and each double check each other. But that does mean that paper has to move, which always gives me a little anxiety when you're talking about data, that you don't want it to move more than it needs to. And it's really just inputting that data into a spreadsheet and being able to spit it out on a graph. The good news is we kept the survey fairly simple. A lot of yes or no's. Comments are there for information, but obviously aren't data points that we gather. So I think once a spreadsheet is built and someone can, jam, then the next person can take the paper and just validate that what's in the spreadsheet is appropriate, and then we would be able to report on it. So I don't know how folks feel about that plan, but that was my thought process, and that if we get through all of that, we could potentially have that here in April, which actually might be perfect timing, Chief, if you're bringing some of that data too, and just see if there are any correlations or questions, or it wouldn't be statistically valid yet, but at least it would be information that we can start to, look at and measure ourselves on.
So I'm curious, like, what you think, Chris, what Danielle and Winnie thinks with Jamie's idea of inputting and then having it edited by one person, or as opposed to distributing widely and passing around. What do you all think?
I asked a clarifying question, I don't remember, about how many surveys were returned.
Just over 100 now. Maybe even
I'm
more.
willing, I don't know how you feel about this with the board, but I'm willing to donate some admin time to be able to help with this process.
From like another person, do you?
Well, yeah, from NCSS, I just if it's just merely inputting and then there's the validation process is the second part of that, but I realize everyone has a lot on their plates.
Yeah.
Or we just divide and conquer, I don't know. it's, I mean, amongst the team, it's not that many surveys, but when you talk about the validity of the data and then it going from place to place.
No, that's the,
Yeah, it feels like one central location to input and then to pass off for somebody else to kind of edit and double check. That does feel like one entry point is probably better than multiple.
yeah.
Um,
And, you know, in future times, I think we can set it up so that there's an admin right out of the front.
Right,
But I've had them in my possession for a while now, so I just feel like it's gonna be easier this time to just do this work and then hand them off in total to someone else who would be willing to just look through and validate. And maybe that, I don't know if the admin person could do that work or if we would be comfortable with that, Danielle?
Yeah, I'm sure that they would be fine with that.
Because then we can hand off exactly the number that I inputted, and I have exactly the number that Kristen gave, so we can validate across the continuum that it's not like anybody shredded surveys along the way, which is always a concern, right?
Have you started inputting?
I've started building the spreadsheet.
Oh.
I have not started inputting will be the easiest part. I just want to set it up so that the graph spits out at the end, so.
right.
Yeah, and I'm changing jobs, so I've been working through some transition, so that's been kind of my full-time job is to change jobs over the last couple weeks, so it's put me behind a little.
Yeah, I mean, that's, if you don't feel like it's too much of a hardship to enter them, and then if Danielle thinks that she has somebody that would be willing to do the editing, I think that is a huge blessing to this board. Any other thoughts?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. What do you think, Winnie? Are you comfortable with that too?
Yes, I am.
Okay, beautiful. So, Danielle, thank you so much
Yes,
for that
yeah.
offer. That's
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
generous.
That's great.
Okay, perfect. So, well, I owe you a cake or something. Like,
Yeah,
That was a lot of work.
I was ready to sit side by side and stare
They're
at
taking
Janet,
on,
but
so, yeah.
It's front-loaded work though, because I think once we
It
build the
is,
tool,
yeah.
we
I agree
survey,
with
it
that.
becomes easier and
But
easier,
to get
and,
started.
yeah, and it will set up this committee for success, and then we can, you know, however things sugar out in the future, the next person will have something to hand off, but for right now, I've thought a million ways around how to divide and conquer, and all of it came back to so much room for error that I just wouldn't want the integrity of it to be questioned.
right, sure, right. I
Yeah.
get it. Thank you so much for that.
Oh, my pleasure. I genuinely like doing that kind of stuff, so.
More power to you.
I could
I like to
hardly
do that
know the
once in a
person
while.
looks so awesome.
No, I find that, you know how like some people knit or wash dishes to find their zen. I like to work my data at the hospital. I like to work my data
I like
everywhere.
it too.
Because it just gets me out of my headspace.
You're amazing.
Good. All right, we'll take advantage of that.
Okay.
Is this what you were referring to?
Oh.
That
Yeah, the
particular policy?
personnel selection,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah,
yeah.
okay.
And I have exactly, but I think it's,
Gender identity is what those
Yeah.
refer to add to the other things
Yeah.
that they have there.
yeah. In that second paragraph under the policy, yeah. Yeah,
Thank you.
I think it might just be gender diversity, so adding.
It was, yeah,
Yeah.
that was the suggestion,
Okay,
I think.
yeah,
Oh, I did have that up there.
Well, send me what you got.
Yeah.
yeah, thank you.
Perfect, thank you, Chris.
I don't know where it went now, just lost it.
Okay.
Oh, yes, gender diversity, yes.
Yes, thank you.
Can you email me?
If you want to include me on the email, that would be
Or
great.
send
Sure.
it, or send it, send over to me, and she can send it to me.
Thank you so much. Chris.
Yes, I can,
Yeah, thank
I can
you,
send
Chris.
it to you.
Okay, so the next item was the PAP restructuring status, and that's just kind of, just to touch on it, because I know our goal is by next month to have a little bit more clarity. still don't have what the final restructuring will look like. I haven't received any nominations, so the only nomination that has been proposed so far was for John to step into one of the positions, once we know what that's gonna look like. So just kind of that friendly reminder, if any board members wanted to make any nominations, suggestions, recommendations for when the restructuring happens, you can email at any time, email the group or send me a message, and just want to make sure that, maybe probably not if, but when there are changes, that everybody's voice is heard. So just a friendly reminder for that. And then that'll definitely be an agenda item for next month. I know we'll have a lot more clarity on what that's going to look like.
Yes.
And for me so far, it's worked out. I haven't gotten paged on a board night so far, so that's good too. So yeah, just wanted to put that reminder that if anything with this board, I really want to make sure that every board member's voice is heard. So I'd rather hear from you all too much than not enough, and just make sure that your thoughts are taken into consideration.
So in the interim, Melinda, until we figure that out, if you do get paged on board night, I am happy to.
Thank you so much.
Slide right in, so I don't want that to be a stressor.
I appreciate it. I was like, should I
Yeah.
ask her just in case? And
Always ready, I was a Girl Scout. Always.
I love it.
The mantra.
I know, right? Always prepared and buy my cookies. That's
And loves data. I mean, what better compliment do we have?
a minute.
Okay, so I mean, that's all I had on the agenda, as far as the items for us to go through. The next item on the agenda is the public comments, so I want to give an opportunity. It looks like we might have, first, let's say thank you so much, Chief.
Thank you, Chief.
Yes.
Winnie, nice to see you, or hear you. I will see you at some point. I'll see you guys next month.
Perfect, thank you.
Chief.
So I just want to give a moment, if anybody from the public wanted to make a comment. Any other comment from board members? This might be one of the quickest meetings. I know we had one that was a little bit faster.
I just want to take a second, because I think we're just at the year mark, right? Or was last month our year?
Last month was it?
Last month was our year
Wow.
mark. I think we've done a way to pop.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was super articulate, but I really think that we've done a lot, and the fact that we're cycling through policies that are up for approval, that the feedback is flowing fairly smoothly, I think that's a big deal for this community and for this board, and so. And I could have said that while Chief was here, it wasn't my intention to wait for him to leave, but I would say it to him directly, but I just think that that's, important thing for us to pause and celebrate that for a minute.
Yeah, I agree too. I feel like we've definitely found a flow, and I think we found the timing of our monthly board meetings has worked out really well in conjunction with when city council meets and giving time for us to review and then make recommendations, and giving them a chance to digest some of those recommendations. I think we've come a long way. I'm so excited about the surveys.
I know, me too.
That's huge.
Me too.
And also, I would just remind, if people want to email our PAB email address, it's been a little bit quiet lately, which is okay too. Yeah, I know. That being said, it's still available, and yeah, it's been interesting. We've gotten some great ideas, suggestions. So just another way of communication flow. And then just a friendly reminder to our board members, don't hesitate to if you have ideas, email or agenda ideas, don't hesitate to make sure that your thoughts are out there, so because everybody's equal and honored, so. Otherwise, gosh, I should have made a cake. Celebrate Jamie putting in the data and the 1-year anniversary, my goodness. You don't want my baby now. Okay, so I don't know if there's anything else, and if not, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Jamie. Thank you, Chris. All in favor? Say aye. Any opposed? Same sign. Okay, thank you all. Have a good night.